What was the hardest thing to adjust to when you first came into this prison?
I've always naively, I guess, thought that women were the gentler sex, the weaker sex. That's what society wants us to believe. And the fact that women can stab a man to death 40 times, I find that incomprehensible.
South of Chicago, in the state of Indiana, 2 prisons hold some of America's most dangerous female criminals. The Rockville Correctional Facility and Indiana Women's Prison house over 1,800 offenders. Many are serving long sentences for extremely violent crimes. Some will end their days here.
How severely was the victim hurt?
The bullet came into close contact with his eye and
You shot him in the face?
Yes.
For 4 weeks, I was given access to a world and a culture, the like of which I've never known.
So you were classed as a baby killer?
I was that, I am that. I'm a lot more than that as well, but that's who I am.
America imprisons more women than anywhere else in the world. This is Indiana Women's Prison. My escort, Sergeant McPherson, is taking me to meet the most notorious inmate in the state, a convicted double murderer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Sergeant, we're heading now to?
To the Administrative Segregation Unit. This unit is where our disciplinary offenders are. This is what you call like a punishment for them. We put them here to give them time to think about what they've done and to clear up their negative behavior.
Offenders in this unit spend more than 20 hours a day locked in their cells. They have no contact with the rest of the prison population.
Hey, Sarah, you ready?
Sarah Pender has been in this segregation unit for nearly 5 years. This is punishment not for the double murder for which she was convicted, but for an incident in 2008 which made headline news across the country. This is the Rockville Correctional Facility from which Sarah Pender escaped in 2008. She was on the run for more than 4 months and was labeled America's Most Wanted Woman.
Leading the way back to Indiana, 2 state troopers and an unmarked police car, bringing convicted murderer and prison escapee Sarah Jo Pender back to an Indiana state prison. Pender has been on the run from police since escaping from the Rockville Correctional Facility last August.
She'll have no contact with the outside. No phone calls, no visits, and we'll minimize her contact even with staff internally.
The state has been true to its word. And this has been Sarah Pender's life ever since. Scott Spittler, the officer who helped her escape, was jailed for 7 years. Sergeant McPherson has known Sarah Pender from the day she arrived at Indiana Women's Prison.
She must have struck up a very deep relationship, having targeted that male officer.
He was having problems at home, and she preyed on that. She preyed on his emotions. She made him feel that she was going to save him, that she would be his everything, that she would replace what he didn't have. And he was so vulnerable, he fell for it. So he did whatever she asked. He fell in love with her.
He fell in love with her?
Yes, but of course she wasn't in love with him. She used him to get what she wanted, and that was to get out of Rockville.
And you would put that down to her ability to
manipulate. She is, I've seen a lot. I've been here for over 20 years. Sarah is one of the best manipulators I've seen.
Why do you think they have given you this long sentence, as it were, in segregation unit?
Because I embarrassed them.
How did you embarrass them?
Well, I escaped from what was supposed to be a maximum security prison.
How did you do that?
An officer aided me.
In what way?
This is a little embarrassing. He drove me out. They have these transportation vans that come in to get fuel. They have like their own little gas station, and we planned it so that when he came in to get fuel, then I came out and got in the van.
How did you manage to persuade an officer
Well, I didn't actually...
to take you out?
I didn't actually ask him. Yeah, I know. It's, I was having... when I was planning my escape, I planned on doing it by myself. And, but I needed money, and I didn't want to ask my family because I would have to lie to them about what it was for. So in order to make money, I worked with this officer who would traffic in contraband, and then my friends would sell it for money, and then I would get the money to save up for my escape. And so he was making a lot of money because I was paying him very well to do this. And he found out that I was planning an escape and saw an opportunity to make more money. And so he said, well, what if I could just roll you out of here? I said, that would be worth my while. And as a side note, I also had a sexual relationship with the officer, and that came out when I escaped, and that was very embarrassing to the department.
I think I'm beginning to understand why the authorities have taken such a strong line on your case. Mm-hmm. Because you mentioned it was an embarrassment. I think it's a huge embarrassment for them.
Yes, and the only explanation that they've given my mother for why I'm in here is that I'm, quote, too smart for their facility.
Now, since September, we've been hot on the trail of a woman authorities have called a female Charles Manson. Now, recently she was added to the U.S. Marshals 15 Most Wanted list, making her the most wanted woman in America.
But how on earth do the authorities explain the fact that she escaped? Lieutenant Brad Gray was on duty on the day of the breakout. Lieutenant Gray, what were your impressions of Sarah Pender while she was here?
She was always trying to get an advantage over someone or something. It was always about, anytime you talk to her, if you ask her a question, she would typically respond with, what's in it for me? And when people, either say that or give you the impression that that's what they're trying to do, then it should put you on notice that, you have to be careful about how you're dealing with them.
She got out through a back door in this recreation building. Having changed into casual clothes, she hid her prison uniform in the ceiling. The door alarms failed to go off, and a white van was waiting. With Pender crouching under the back seat, Spittler drove her out of the west gate and out onto the open road. What were your feelings about the fact that this was an officer with whom you had worked very closely, someone you knew, someone you had served with, and someone you respected as a colleague?
Once we discovered that it was him that had driven Pender out of the facility, I was just absolutely sick, just sick to my stomach, physically sick, mentally sick over the entire episode.
Sarah Pender proved to be, as you had probably thought when she came in here, that she was just as clever a manipulator as you had originally felt.
Oh, absolutely. She has proven herself to be that time and time again, and that is probably the best proof of it right then and there. If you can convince an officer, someone who was trained not to do this, somebody who was trained to maintain the order and the peace of a facility, if you can convince that person to drive you out of a correctional facility, you can convince anybody to do anything.
The authorities were bruised by Sarah Pender's escape. She was put in solitary confinement and has now been here for almost 5 years, longer than any other female prisoner in the state. Prison inmates on long sentences survive partly on dreams of freedom. But in August 2008, one female offender, Sarah Pender, actually broke out of Rockville. The convicted double murderer had earlier told me that her escape plan relied on the help of Officer Scott Spittler.
She has a Charles Manson-like ability to manipulate people to act as surrogates for her in committing crimes. The evidence was overwhelming that if she didn't pull the trigger, she did everything else.
Pender has always admitted helping to get rid of the bodies, but she strenuously denies masterminding the killings. But she failed to convince the jury. Pender was found guilty of double murder. I kept hoping to get to the bottom of the Sarah Pender story.
Okay. The thing that I have always got from the conversations we've had before is that you are not typical of the people in this prison environment generally. Mm-hmm. Would you agree?
I would. I have a wider worldview, and I think that I've been able to glean more wisdom than the typical person. I'm generally more educated. I have 5 years of college.
Why did you choose the path that ended you up here?
It was an emotional attachment to someone who, when I found out that he dealt drugs, that I accepted it because I didn't want to lose him.
So at every stage you were aware of where that codependency was taking you?
Yes, I went into the relationship with my eyes open. However, I was very, very naive, and I never thought that it would bring harm to me or anyone that I loved. And like most women, I thought that I could change him. And I asked him to stop selling drugs and to get a real job, and he agreed. And that was the path that I thought we were going on at the time.
Were you aware that there were guns in the house, or a gun in the house?
Yeah, I bought the gun. It was my gun. He asked me to buy him a gun.
If someone asked me to buy a gun, my first question would be, A, why me? Why are you asking me to do it? And what are you going to use it for? Mm-hmm. Did you ask those questions?
Yeah. And he told me that I was the only person who didn't have a criminal background, because
Well, that in itself is awfully suspicious.
Well, in America, you can't buy a firearm legally if you have a felony. And so I was the only person who was legally able to buy it. But
Sure, but I'm talking about the fact that you were being asked to buy a gun by a felon.
The thought of being left alone frightened me more than whatever consequences would come from purchasing a firearm.
What kind of a gun was this?
It was a shotgun that you would use for hunting, like, I think birds. I don't know, I didn't pick it out.
But in the end, it was not used for hunting birds. It was used for shooting two people with whom he was in a disagreement.
Yeah. Well, he had no disagreement with the woman. He said that he shot her just because she was a witness.
The bare fact of the matter is that you purchased a gun which was used in the killing of two people. Did you think about the victims of the people who were killed in this crime?
I think about them all the time. I think more about their families. The woman had 3 kids. Patricia, she had 3 children. And Despite the fact that they were both felons, drug dealers, it doesn't matter. They were still people, and they have families that love them, just like I have a family that loves me. And they can't ever get those people back.
What did you think when you heard the judge or the prosecutor pronounced a sentence on you? Because you were given two very long sentences.
Yes, I was given 110 years.
110 years?
Yeah.
What were your emotions on hearing that dreadful sentence?
Disbelief.
Why did the jury in the end conclude that you were directly involved in the murder of two people?
I knew that I had committed a crime, but I knew I wasn't guilty of murder, and I was willing to take responsibility for my actions.
In that case, was it in somebody's mind, the mind of the prosecutors, the prosecuting authorities, that you had somehow encouraged or manipulated him into committing those murders?
Yes. Yes, that was their theory, that I had, this is where the entire reputation of manipulation, that I'm a manipulator, came from. The prosecutor had went forward on the theory that I had manipulated Richard into murdering the victims, and his theory was that I wanted them out of my house.
You were being judged, or you were seen, you were perceived as a two-faced manipulator.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is a really hard label to carry. Every time I meet somebody new, if they are aware of my infamous reputation, it's a new hurdle to jump. And that's a consequence of my actions.
At Indiana Women's Prison, it's morning recreation. It's a chance for inmates to make friends and cultivate relationships, which can be a desperately important part of prison life. The most troublesome offenders have few opportunities to do that. They are confined to this segregation unit. They have 1 hour out of their cells and are escorted, shackled, even to go for a shower. Sarah Pender's cell faces that of her friend, armed bank robber Desiree Hancock.
Put your arms back out here then. This one? Yeah. I heard you tighten it up after I put it on you. All right, step back. Step out.
But I notice you're opposite Sarah Pender.
Yes, I love her. That's one of my very good friends, I would like to give her a lot of credit for partly the woman that I am today. Like when I get ready to show out or I get ready to snap, because this place will take you there, she'll be like, Desiree, shut up. Or shut up, go sit down. And I'll go sit down, I'll calm down. In a place like this, friend is not a word that you just throw around. And it's not something that you just say, because women are very vindictive creatures and they're very fake and they're very just catty. They will smile in your face and they will just be like, hey, and I just hope nothing but the best for you. And then you turn around and they done blue slipped you like 35 times and trying to get you and your girlfriend separated.
How close do these relationships get? You mentioned women and her girlfriend. That's it's a pretty
They get pretty deep.
Pretty deep.
Pretty deep. They get pretty deep. A lot of women don't come in here gay. I wasn't when I came to prison, but I am now. And
you have become
yes,
practicing gay. Is that
yes, I'm a lesbian. Yes, I am.
But you discovered that, or you became that
I became
when
that
you
here.
here, when
I
you
was
came to
married
this.
3 years before I came to prison to a man. And,
Okay.
it's just, I don't know, loneliness is what started it. And then, I don't know, one thing led to another, and it may seem fake on the outside, but emotions and feelings are real.
And you have had such a deep relationship in this.
I've had two great loves. I've had a dozen relationships, but I've had two great loves. And I have...
In this prison?
And I will say that I damaged both of them. I damaged both of them.
How did you do that? How did you damage both of them?
Being a cheater, a liar, just... it was like being a cheater and a liar. Like when you're in a relationship, it's like being a kid in a candy store. It's not just one. It's not one girl. It's 740 girls. So, and out of the 740, probably only 40 ain't gay. The rest of them, this is the gayest place on earth. The rest of them are all gay.